Would you like to call this meeting to order, Mr. Boating, and ask for approval of today's agenda and the minutes from last month?
I'll let you do it so I can focus on the road. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So do we have a motion to approve today's agenda and the minutes from our last meeting?
I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Michael. Second?
Second.
Okay. We'll file that for audit. Do we have a treasurer's report? Did she give you something? We lost her.
Oh,
Is that
that
for
was
me?
good timing.
Okay, sorry. I did just forward y'all the financials a second ago. Some of y'all, I have not finished all the stuff from the bilingual. I just got the check from ISA yesterday, but our balance is 11,000. And we did make a little bit of money on the bilingual event, but once again, we do need to kind of be conservative in our spending.
Yes, ma'am. And Preston's on this call too, and he said he was reaching back out to PepsiCo on our grant payment.
Oh, yeah, we're missing that payment. The one from the Forest Service, I haven't gotten yet because I sent an invoice that had to do with the PepsiCo planting, and that confused everyone. So I just have to clarify that. But we have a check for 71, almost $7,200 from the ISA. So we'll be back up to like 1,600 after I make it to the bank.
Okay, but you meant 16,000.
16,000.
And then we still have that grant money.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, we're sitting more solidly. We used to sit at 30. We're sitting more solidly at, below 20. So I feel like that kind of speaks to our spending habits. So,
Okay.
but I think with the events we have this year, we know that they're going to make some money and we can build that back up.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anybody have any receipts outstanding from the bilingual that hasn't been covered?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't. And I'm thinking I'm the only one that bought anything. Anything I did would have been on our card, Amy.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Except
And
for speakers and travel.
yeah, we're waiting on Amy Burkett to reimburse that, but we paid all 3 of the speakers for Dallas. So travel expense is the only thing outstanding that I still haven't paid.
Awesome. And because of that event, Houston hooked on to our municipal conference too.
Oh, good, good, good. Okay, I'm gonna let Lindsay cover me from here out.
Thank you, Miss Amy.
Thank y'all.
Amy.
And thank you, Miss Lindsay. So they call it March Madness for a reason. Next, Mr. Boating, under new business is our precision pruning, and since you want me to carry on?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a half day indoor-outdoor with outdoor applications on May 19th at the Tree Place in Fort Worth. And I sent y'all an agenda, but I don't know, Michael, can we display it?
I don't know if I have it up yet. Let me see.
Well, that's okay.
I do have a schedule. Well, actually, yeah, hold on. I can, it is on the blog. Just a second.
And notice that we're calling it precision, guys, not prescriptive.
Just a moment.
And can you explain to us why we do that?
Because we don't have any sanctioned trainers. There are no sanctioned trainers outside of Florida.
Never
We
go
had-
Susan.
We have trained people like Miss Lindsay too. You are also trained. So
Correct.
you're on the radar too, woman.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's
Last
the
fall.
agenda. And so at 8 to 9 would be Chris. 9 to 10 would be, I believe, Gareth Harrier. And with Bartlett, and 10 to 11 would be shoot. Andrew Wimmel with Sam Hill. And then last would be Ronnie Nelson. And I'm not sure who Ronnie's with.
I think he's with Simply Horticulture.
Okay. So those are our trainers. That's our agenda. When Chris was doing his training for the climbing championship down in Bronzeville, I know of at least 3 people from San Antonio that want to come up. And there's interest outside of our area too. It'll fill. It's like Amy said. But we'll add prescriptive pruning. You can probably put our agenda back up, Michael.
I have a question. Is there a certification to become a prescriptive pruner?
They're working on it. That's why these other chapters don't have it up yet. Correct,
Okay.
Lindsay?
It's correct. They have a, I mean, you can go through the Florida ISA, their events calendar, and you can see when they're offering it. They did offer it out of state once last year. I think it was in California. But they're working to try to get it set up. When I was there, they mentioned that they were trying to set it up similar to track and getting it done that way.
Yeah.
It's a great class. I was fortunate to go down to Miami and take it. The first day, if this is set up and it looks like it is set up sort of like similar to that module, like
Yes.
the first day is incredibly beneficial for production crews. So I'm just putting that out there, like having any foreman or available if I don't know what you guys are doing as far as getting that out, but that's a really, really important thing. And they know they push that a lot in the messaging in Florida, because they're even like send you stuff like when you sign up for the class, like
Yeah.
after the class is over, some crazy percentage, I want to say like it was like in the 80s maybe,
Mhm.
people who took this wish that they had brought their production crew, especially specifically to day one, that talks about it, because it really creates like a synthesis between like how you can discuss this, and rather, I mean, it just depends on what people are comfortable doing and what, frankly, what a lot of people can afford to send as far as covering the
Mhm.
cost, but it is really beneficial.
Oh,
And
yeah.
really
And
trying to get the
There's a-
messaging more cohesive.
yes, people coming together, and prescribers and producers.
Yeah.
Whole new nomenclature. It's nice to have a nomenclature to use.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, an education process. So that's all the details, and I know all y'all will help us push it there. It will go up on ISA website ASAP. We have a few things that we're working out, like Gene needs to okay that up in the registration price. But that's about it, unless anyone else has anything else to add. Oh, we don't have, oh, let me add this. We have to rent 70 chairs and probably 3 tables. The seating is gonna be chairs. We don't have any tables. There's no vendor space. So we've reached out to, Chris reached out to, and I may call it wrong, but an insurance agency, H something, I can't remember. And for them to sponsor the lunch. And he's looking at sponsors like Site One, Joshua Tree experts, arbor masters, and just asking them, to sponsor something.
Yeah. I
'Cause
have a question about that. I don't know if this is possible, but I know the City of Dallas Park and Recreation team has an event trailer. full of tables and chairs. Is that something we could use, Blake?
I would have to ask about that since it's a non-city of Dallas event, so I cannot tell you yes or no. I can look into
Could you
it.
find out? I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. The worst they can say is no.
Right. Okay.
But then you have to have staff to set that up, and then you have to feed them. By the time you do
Oh.
that, you paid for chairs.
Well, I mean, we can send them off.
If we were smoothing along, but this was just dropped in our lap, and it will make, it won't cost us that much.
Okay.
I feel we're okay, sir. Okay, we'll move on to Board of Director training. I put in a request for the Audubon Center for any Friday in April except the Friday of Easter. And we'll do training from 9 to 2. And in the meantime, I talked to Preston, and he has training at the scheduled at the Audubon Center on Monday. So he's going to ask if we can utilize that facility. So we'll probably get to have our board retreat out there.
Sounds good. I think it's a little easier for people to make it actually during
Yeah.
work than
Good.
outside of work. And it gives us an excuse to leave work.
Right.
So I like it.
Okay.
That's great.
And then, Mr. President, next is bilingual workshop. And Amy kind of went over the budget already. And the 26 dates are February 17th, 18th, and 19th. Please note that those are consecutive dates. And that was from speaker request.
Okay. So as we get closer, I can reserve those rooms over at Texas A&M.
Yes, sir.
You know, speaking of that, they never charged us for that room.
They
At
will.
least I don't think they did.
And they might have sent it directly to Amy. I don't know. Because she worked with her.
I want to make sure we keep that relationship good.
Well, ask when you call to
definitely.
reserve.
Yeah, I'll call Gretchen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Next on the agenda is shade keeper training, and that's kind of in my bailiwick. So our last training occurred and I took that off. But that was back in February, and we did fruit trees, and that's always fun. And our next training course is set for November 15th, 2025, and we will add additional training dates as requested. And Preston's probably eating lunch, but he's talking about us merging our program with Dallas Citizen Foresters and kind of mimic the program that they're doing for Citizen Foresters in Fort Worth.
Yeah, Ross Timbers.
So that we're looking at that merging, and biggest thing on that is scheduling. But they have someone that does that in their group, so that would help. We would just basically
Do we need to meet with them?
we will after this initial when they figure out where they're going.
Okay.
So next on the agenda was saluting branches. And I don't know if Blake or Preston had any information on. Well, I don't even see them now.
I don't have any information as of now or update.
I can respond to that. I'm in the process of doing a proposal to do it in Plano and sending it to my park director. So we have a cemetery that's been abandoned, and there's about 20, 25 cedar elms that need to get removed. Our staff could remove those if I get approval to do that project.
Okay, well, we still need to work through our current representative and through Dallas.
Do we? Okay. Would that be okay if we didn't do it in Dallas and we did it in Plano, using the Dallas rep?
Do you have the equipment to support it, et cetera? And
Yes.
parking and, okay,
Parking, there's no parking lot there, but there's plenty of street parking.
okay.
It's all residential roads. It's not
Well,
like
you
main
know
roads.
what it takes. You've been at this event for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and there's already a group that goes out there and does work, and so I need to coordinate with that group. So maybe I'll set up a side meeting to coordinate with that group this month, and we can see how we can work together to make this project successful.
Right. But we'll always do DFW, and Rainbow's kind of locked in out there, and he has the product that can be utilized out there,
Right.
It's a more maintained area, and these are all highly unmaintained areas that we're going into. And his mom's buried out there, and his dad will be buried out there.
Where?
DFW.
Oh, that. If you guys want to do this in DFW and not Plano, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
No, darling, we do 2 sites. We could even probably support 3. It's just pulling the people out.
Right. Okay. Well, then I'll proceed with putting a proposal for my park director.
Well, yeah, talk to him first. If he won't accept it, there's no need even trying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and unless the city of Dallas Parks guys have a site they want to move on, I'd be happy just to shift our second site to Plano.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, because we want to replant in the fall afterwards. I don't get my money till November, so or October. So we were going to do the saluting branches in November, and then do a separate tree planting event in December.
Okay. So it sounds like a good fit. Go forward and prosper. But Preston, could you find out who the contact is in Dallas? I can't remember that kid's name we worked with last
There's
year.
Carlos Ortiz.
Conroy Ortiz.
Ortiz.
Yeah, Carlos. Yeah, he's kind of heading up the forestry department now that Chris is going.
Okay. And that young lady he worked with, we need to keep her in the loop in the office.
In Dallas?
Do you remember her name? That lady in the office we worked with?
Oh, it was Nadia, right?
Nadia.
Yeah, Bobby Ma.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, that's September 17th, 2026.
Okay. And that's the week before ISA conference?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that 26 or 25? We're in 25.
25. Oh, yeah, 25. Thank you. Please adjust your agendas to say 2025. That's why I send y'all this stuff,
Well, we all missed it too.
Well, next we have on our agenda, Mr. President, is EAB and additional assistance in urban forestry for the city of Dallas, because we have partnered with them on their urban forestry, particularly EAB.
Yeah.
So what's going on? How can we help?
I don't know. We have it pretty well covered. I feel like it might be better for us to focus our energy on reaching out to smaller towns that aren't doing anything, or even big towns that aren't doing anything, like Fort Worth.
Okay, so can we post your information?
Yeah, of course. And so like right now we're putting out a couple dozen traps to keep monitoring. Then we share those with our results with the Forest Service, and then we're scheduling some spring treatments. So, and then we're conducting the contract full tree inventory. So there's not a whole lot of assistance that I can think of. So, but we're happy to share.
But that's all good information that we can.
Yeah.
So if you'll just send that to support@tbufc.org. Anything that y'all want posted up, send it to Michael. That's support at
Yeah,
TBU.
and we're working on some updates for council and the park board anyway. So I'll have some nice consumable graphics and stuff
Nice.
to share.
Sweet.
Yes.
So are we saying like Facebook and social media posts go to Mary and then website posts go to Michael?
Correct.
Okay.
But if you were sending them to Michael and it's a social media post, wouldn't you forward that, Michael?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I would also forward that to Mary. Yeah,
Okay. So then let's
Yeah.
just send everything to support.
that's fine.
Is that okay with everybody?
But sometimes if you need it up really quick, send it to Mary.
Yeah.
'Cause Mike has to
Okay.
work. 'Cause
Okay.
that's what she does at work.
Right.
Oh, so yeah, no, it's still really easy for her to just implement that into her work program. Okay.
Certainly.
I gotta send her some stuff.
So, Michael, that leads to you on web updates.
Sounds good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Oh, been hopping over here on the website, keeping all of our information updated. However, it's been pretty exciting after getting completed with the bilingual workshop and then and also Lindsay, I don't know if we have any more pictures from the event. I thought they were taking some pictures. I hadn't gotten anything yet, but I was just thought I'd check with y'all and see if there was any additional
Oh.
pictures from.
I can get some for you. We posted
Okay.
some on our page, but
Oh,
I can
okay.
get with Suzanne who
Okay.
works here and she's the one that took the photos, and I can get whatever she has and I can
Oh,
send it
okay.
over to
Yeah,
you.
no
That's no
problem.
problem.
That was just the one thing I was thinking. Is I knew I had some pictures from the event, but I know Suzanne usually takes a bunch, so I was I
Yeah,
love to
and she took
face
some
a lot.
last year too, if you're not
Send them
opposed to, if
all.
you're just posting them for like,
Yeah.
it doesn't, does not like we're putting together a yearbook here, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
so I mean, if you just need photos of it, I'm sure we got some. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. Now you can just send them to me and I'll get those up. And I know we had such a great turnout for that event. And
Yeah. I don't
so-
think she went outside when it was like freezing rain. So
Oh,
you
no.
might not get any from that, but
That's okay.
I have some from that.
Yeah, I
Perfect,
imagine we probably
okay.
got a few from outside too, so no worries. But no, thank you very much. But yeah, overall though, yeah, we've been just continuing to get updated. Yeah, especially with the precision pruning event coming up in May. We'll getting all of the details on the blog post. The start of the blog post is now live. However, information as soon as we get it will be updated accordingly. So I will keep that posted as soon as I get new updates. But overall, we're just again just keeping everybody updated with everything going on. Make sure if you have any new folks that you come in contact with that need to want to get want to make sure to get information about TBUFC, make sure to send them to the site so they can subscribe to our newsletter that we put out once a month.
Yeah.
We making sure that I usually get that out the week before our meeting with all the great details happening, coming up. But if anybody, if I'm making sure everybody is getting that, but we're we have a lot of good information coming through, and I will continue to keep updating those as soon as I get more information. But overall, that's about all I've got on for March update. And again, send me any new information you got, and I will get that posted. And that's all I've got.
Well, I think that's enough. So social media is next, and Miss Mary's not with us, but
Oh, she is. Yeah, Mary's on.
I'm right here.
Oh, there she is. I don't
Yes,
see
ma'am.
anybody.
I came in late. I had a situation.
Well,
uh,
see,
just to let y'all know, I finally have gotten my groove on posting weekly on social media. It is something I do now as a part of my daily task at work. So try to get on social media and like those posts and share them. We have a very small following. Again, if we could get the original social media back with all those followers and all of that archived history of what we've done would be amazing. But I know we still have not gotten access to that old account. So I'm trying to get the momentum on the new account. And I think we have like, I think 3 followers. So it's gonna take a while to get us up there. And also, I have a question. How do y'all feel about boosting posts on social media, especially Facebook, to reach a larger crowd of people to get that momentum on social media that we don't have right now? And I'm not really sure how to boost a post. I just know it's an option. Every time I post, it asks me, do I want to boost it? And of course, I always say no. I believe it costs money to boost.
I believe it does.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess we'd like to just know what is the cost and how many people does it get boosted to?
Okay.
I
I
don't
will
know.
document that the next time. My second social media question for the team is, how do y'all feel about having a LinkedIn account for our organization?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
so,
Well,
right? I think so.
it
Yeah, I think it's a good
requires
idea.
it requires somebody to create a personal account to then create the organization account, and I needed authorization before I did anything like that.
Mhm.
So I can work on that this week then.
I think that'd
And
be
then
great.
I am on
we're
the
using
same.
this, are we using the same email for all these accounts? Like the TBUFC email?
We're using Mike, I believe it's the
Yeah.
Trinity Blackland Urban Forestry at
Yeah,
Trinity.
TBFC,
Perfect.
TBFC, right. Yeah, it's definitely
Perfect.
a TBFC address, correct?
Yes.
That's what
And
we
I've
want.
shared, yeah, and I've shared the password with Susan and Mark and Mike for the Facebook in the event that I come to some demise I wasn't expecting, and y'all can still log in and get in on that stuff. And I'll do the same password for anything I ever create with y'all's permission.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right. That's all I have, guys.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
The gentleman that spoke with us was from Planet PLA Geo. His first name was Steve. I don't remember his last name, but I will look up his information and we will proceed with acquiring through his contacts at Facebook our old account. How's that?
I have his email. You want me to send you his email?
Send it to Mary. You want to initiate that? You want to work with him?
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Okay.
also probably back in our previous minutes too on the web, so we should be able to go back and get that. You know,
Yes.
if we need to do
Mark's
that,
got it.
I can't remember which meeting, but we definitely have the.
Well, he came to 2 meetings and we need to reach out to him and make sure, tell him how much we appreciate his, his
Okay.
da-da-da.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you, Miss
Is-
Mary.
Is the quick question on the Facebook? I'm searching for it, so it looks like the one I found has 379 followers, and I assume that's the old one because the last post was 6 years ago.
Yes, and so
Yeah.
the way you know the difference is the word council has been removed from the newest Facebook account because it was not letting us create an account that mirrored the original account. It kept flagging it as we were trying to create spam or something. I don't know. It was a process creating the new account, and once I removed the word council, it allowed it to go through and be approved. So
it's just Trinity Blacklands Urban Forestry.
yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'm searching for it now.
Yeah, because I'm still following the old one, and I was like, oh, I'm good. And then I realized that I too am following the one with a couple hundred followers, and you said there was 3, so
Yeah,
I
I'm
figured
not.
that was wrong.
I'm not
I think
gonna
it's, I
stand
think
it.
it's
Well,
me
now
and
it's
Mike.
4. I just joined.
Thank you. I think it's
Here
me,
we
Mike, and
go.
I think if we all
TIFA.
join forces here, we can double our numbers
Yeah.
right now.
Awesome,
I
guys.
think that you
Thank
just
you.
boosted your post for free, Mary.
There we go.
Yeah, so you check on the boost cost and definitely reach out to Stephen.
That's
Yes, ma'am.
exponential growth. 100%.
I love it.
Awesome.
Okay, Mr. President, next we have our urban forestry master planning workshop on the agenda. And I'll kind of give dates since you're driving. It'll be June 24th in Dallas, June 26th, and that's not on there, but that would be New Braunfels, and the 27th is Houston.
Perfect. And you said that we had all of our speakers for that already?
Yes. So we'll have Dana Karcher with Davy, and she'll talk about building community. We'll have Matt Grubestich. I'm not sure what he'll want to talk about. I'll reach out to them all tomorrow. And then we have potentially Sam Hill, and but we do have Chris Rasmussen locked in for precision pruning.
Perfect. I thought we had, so Dana's probably a decent portion of the day.
We'll talk to her and make sure. See
Okay.
what he's got going. But we'll come
Okay.
up with that with those speakers. We should have an awesome agenda, and we should have some momentum after this workshop.
Yeah, I like it.
Because I'm thinking another half day in the afternoon for precision pruning.
Okay.
But that we can meet as a committee, and I was thinking about first of next week, Mike and I meet.
Okay. That works for me. Let me get it posted up on the ISA website.
Yeah. But we already discussed that. And then
Yeah.
so next is the Speakers Bureau, and I just keep sending videos and articles and stuff for Michael to post. In addition, I just need to reach out to the young lady that said she would assist us at our last meeting and get everything that we have categorized and up. But
Okay.
other than that, Mr. President, I haven't made much progress. And
No,
there's
it's good.
okay. Texas Tree Trails is next, and Mr. Hauser's not with us.
I can
So,
confirm he's alive. So
yay, that works.
yeah. We're trying to get up, we're trying to get an article up in at ISA Texas and our next newsletter up for the city of Plano. So we've been working with him and Steve and Dr. Apple.
Awesome. Well, there's an update.
And I'm meeting with Marion Lineberry on Monday, so he might have some input on that. I'll see.
Okay.
And we didn't talk about that, Preston, when we were talking about citizen foresters, but is there potential to merge those two programs?
Well, actually, so I think you got a little cross with what I was talking about. I was talking about the city of Dallas emulating the city of Fort Worth arborist certification course they do every November. And because we had been doing this kind of weird drawn out arborist school thing, but I'd rather just do the 2 day and have with a test available and coordinate that with ISA sometime in the late spring, early summer. And then, but on Monday, I'm meeting with Marion to talk about to kind of revitalize the city's community forester program and our coordination with the master naturalists, but then, and make it more because for the last several years, it was just kind of Karen's thing. I'm gonna make it more of a citywide program and, you know, use more, I don't know, just utilize our citizen foresters more. But, yeah, and that's where we can talk with them about any potential, collaboration or merger with Fort Worth, see if they're interested. Y'all still there?
Yeah. I'm still here.
Got real quiet.
Susan, you're muted. Susan, you're muted.
There
Hey,
you go. Yay.
There you go. There you go.
well, Preston, what I'm saying is, why are you contacting ISA? There is no citizen forester credential that I'm aware of.
No, I'm talking about certified arborist. Yeah, I
Oh.
think you're conflating the two different things we were talking about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm working on kind of revitalizing our community forester program and seeing what more we can do with it. But then also we had an annual arborist school that was kind of unofficially kind of a certified arborist prep course, but I want to do a more official one like Fort Worth has.
Yeah. Awesome. We want to assist with that.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'll let y'all know as soon as we work out any details if there's any way we can TBUFC can fit in, and then especially with the community foresters, at the very least, just you know having some kind of information sharing between the two for volunteer opportunities.
Exactly. And but we can talk about that. We look forward to working with y'all.
And then I don't know if Blake knows any more about it than me. I just know from like a LinkedIn post that the Parks Department was working with a new nonprofit called Plan T, where their mission is to plant tiny forests. And so I think they were trying to get something going with parks.
I've not heard anything about that, but that does not mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and Chris Rasmussen, I believe, is now on the board for Plan T, so he might know more.
Okay. I've got a meeting with some kind of group in April about microforests. So it could be his group. Is it the
Okay.
group with Gita Menon? Like she works with One Earth, One Tree or something like that?
I believe so. Maybe it's I don't know. It's because the folks I know from Plan T, they're the owners of like this juice company that are getting into more philanthropy.
Is it Buddha?
I think
Is it
that's
Buddha
right.
juice?
Yeah, it's Buddha juice.
I used to trim her trees. hmm
They seem like
She
decent
tried.
people.
They are. Here's a little anecdote if you want it. We emailed and reminded them that we were coming. They have a lot of trees. Surprise to no one, but we emailed and reminded them that we were going to be coming and that we were going to be coming early. And then when we showed up, no one seemed to know. And she was so lovely, but started they have multiple vehicles and started handing us cars to like move them. And it was like a Rolls Royce. Like I'm not gonna drive that car, I'm not gonna touch that car. And it was just so funny. Me and the foreman and the groundsman would just have these I'm talking like a hands full of just keychains. And I was like, "Oh, ma'am, we can't do that." But it was a very memorable experience.
I worked at
So
Mary Kay Cosmetics for 5 years as their landscape department head, and every time we checked the irrigation once a week.
yeah.
go get all the vice president's keys and move their cars and,
I was like, we're not
I'm
gonna
not
drive the
moving that
Range Rover
pink
and the,
Excalibur. No way. That pink Excalibur with heart
we
shape.
can, exactly. We can reschedule if you like. We're all here, which is a bummer, but I mean, we're gonna do that, and we're definitely not gonna drive your Rolls Royce. Like, it's not happening. Like, I don't even know how to turn that on, and I don't
We'll
want to know.
wait. We'll wait.
And
It was fine, but that's my little story.
and a little more background on them as it ties to urban forestry is they had been interested for a long time, and they made a sizable donation to the Texas Trees Foundation, and then
Awesome.
were very disappointed how little there was to show for it. So they decided to start their own nonprofit that actually plants trees. So
So
That's
what?
awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
hope that that's a complete success. They were totally fine. I just thought that was a very memorable moment.
well, and yeah, I think their nonprofit's going to be 100% volunteer. Like, I don't think no one's trying to make a career out of it. They already have more than they need. So
that's what happens. Money gets involved and then that's when everybody starts buying from the same dollar.
Hmm.
But as long as we keep this common cause in focus, we're okay.
yeah,
Focus
and I've been excited about the tiny forest or the Miyawaki method for a long time. So I'm excited to see it get implemented in the region.
Yeah, and that's why Chris is trying to work and get a vendor that has Milwaukee printing products. Also, check out, did he talk to you about that legacy tree?
No, I need to look into that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, we could talk for an hour on that one. But Mr. President, next, do you have any update on the Texas Urban Forestry Congress?
Yeah, I don't really have an update on them because we haven't met since the last time. But I did go to a Cross Timbers Urban Forestry Council meeting last month, just to kind of bridge that gap that we haven't had for a while. They're going to keep doing their own workshop. We're going to keep doing our own workshops, but if there's a chance that we can collaborate and possibly, even do this workshop in Fort Worth at some point or something, then they're willing to do that.
Okay.
They spent a lot of money on their facility. Like, they spent like $11,000 to rent their facility.
Well, that includes all the food too.
Yeah, I think so.
For 200 plus people. It's not a bad cost. It's a good facility. It's centrally located. And do you know why they shared their membership list with us?
When did they do that?
Right after the meeting.
Yeah, I think they said they were going to. I just forgot. I have my notes. I just don't have my notes in front of me.
Okay, well, let us know if we need to share ours with them, but that's something that we need to discuss at the board retreat. I believe,
Yeah.
the president. I'll put it on the agenda. It already is, but we'll do it again.
I mean, we're all on the same team pretty much. We're all trying to do good work. So there's no reason not to talk to each other, and we're in the council together. So
Right. Okay, thank you.
I just want to make sure too that we're not, doing the same thing all the time. I mean, we can in some instances, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, next is long-term and continued planning. Did we lose Mr. Sills? Because this is his area. Just wondering if
I don't know. I don't know if he was there or not. Is he there?
I saw him drop off a while ago.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Okay, well, we'll reach out to all these people, particularly on these next couple of workshops, and see how they're doing.
Yeah, I think that should be the main goal. And if you need help, Susan, let me know.
I will, Mark. So we'll set up a committee meeting. All right, the next thing on our agenda is our next meeting, Mr. President, which would be April 24th at 12 p.m. via Zoom.
All right. When is Easter?
20th.
Okay.
So, is there anything else anybody would like to add or ask or discuss?
Nope, not for me.
Blake?
Yeah.
You okay? How about you, Preston?
I'm good.
I just thank y'all for all the hard work. It's awesome seeing how much this has grown over the last few years. And
Yeah, pretty cool.
as I get a little more settled with my new team, as we're growing, I'll have a little more time and energy to dedicate. So I plan on getting more involved in the near future.
Sweet.
Thanks, Preston.
Thanks, Preston.
I'd just like to say that March Madness takes on a whole new connotation in the boriculture. And you can bet on that one.
Has that tournament started?
I
Oh,
don't.
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't
How's
know
A&M
anything about it.
doing, Michael?
A&M's out.
Oh, sorry, sir.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay,
I-
well, if
As a proud graduate of the University of South Carolina, those Lady Gamecocks are looking pretty sharp.
yes, ma'am. Good job. I didn't look at A&M, but I did see who was up. Anyway, guys, Mr. President, would you like to call for a motion to adjourn?
How about you complete the meeting, Susan?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, thank you, Mary. You have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Blake. If I don't, I guess I will see you before, April. Yeah, I'll see y'all next meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a good weekend.
Sounds
Remember,
good.
there are no
Bye.
silly questions.
Bye-bye.
Easter.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.